We will now call to order the action session for Indianapolis Public Schools Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, March 19, 2015, 6 o'clock p.m. If you would all please stand and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bentley? Here. Oh, Commissioner Here.
Present.
Commissioner Odle?
Present.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Present.
Commissioner Cosby?
Present.
Commissioner Eccles? Present. President Arnold?
Here. We will now move into special recognitions and student performance. Indianapolis Public Schools thanks Lids Team Sports for their recent donation. Their contribution of sports apparel and licensed sports merchandise with a retail value of over $250,000 will help support our growing K-8 athletics programs and provide incentives and rewards for students in the classroom. In IPS, we want to get our students moving academically and athletically. We are working to ensure a healthy, active lifestyle is a part of the education of every student. The generous support of local companies such as Lids makes the expansion of athletics at the K-8 level possible and helps us to achieve that goal. It is my pleasure on behalf of the entire board to present Ms. Tisha Hill, Sales Representative for Lids Team Sports, this recognition of their generous donation of apparel and merchandise for our schools and students. Ms. Hill, please come forward to receive your recognition. Our student performer this evening is Donald Crouch. Donald is in 8th grade and studies piano at Broad Ripple High School for the Arts and Humanities. He has prepared a pair of pieces by Johann Sebastian Bach for us. Thank you, Donald. much, Donald. I want to go back up to adoption of the agenda. Is there consensus that we approve the agenda by consensus? No, we pulled out an item last week and we have moved that item. Also, any recognition of groups in the audience. If you're here to represent a specific group, if you would stand and identify yourself and what group you're representing. Thank you. We will now move into public comments. Public comment may be provided by individuals who have registered with the Board of Commissioners by close of business on Friday of the week preceding the meeting. In the interest of expedient processing of the business before the board and to ensure equity for all providing comments, the board kindly requests that comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Please note that public comment will be received, but the board and the administration will not provide a response this evening. Rondalyn Cornett, President of the Indianapolis Education Association, commenting on Board of Commissioners' core commitments and beliefs. Rondalyn, please step to the podium.
Good evening, School Board and Dr. Farabee. My name is Rondalyn Cornett, and I'm the president of IEA, or the Indianapolis Education Association, the exclusive representative of all bargaining unit members, which includes non-members. With that being said, I realize what affects one person affects all, and members and non-members. A grassroots effort has started in IPS called Elevate IPS. This group, like IEA, wants to stop our quality teachers that leave IPS because of disparity in pay. I will add that pay is not the only reason that teachers are leaving or retiring early from IPS. Another reason is lack of respect or feeling underappreciated. On March 9th, the school board unveiled their core commitments and beliefs to the public. They are lofty and achievable commitments to have and attain. I cannot wait to see the action plan to help you achieve these results. As the board knows, having these commitments and beliefs with no follow-through or plans is nothing more than pretty words on paper. As the president of IEA, it is my duty not only to advocate for all the bargaining unit members, I also advocate for the kids of IPS. I advocate for all because the students' learning conditions are the teachers' working conditions. Number 3 of your core commitments and beliefs is all IPS schools must be a great place to teach and great place to learn. The third bullet or indicator states that students learn best in schools that are safe, clean, nurturing, and respectful environments. I would agree that respectful environments are paramount to a successful school, and I am sure the whole school board would agree also. However, as I travel around the district visiting schools, I hear from teachers who do not feel respected. Our job is strenuous, as some of the school board knows firsthand, as you have been educators in the classroom. Our day is not a simple 8:30 to 4 or 7:15 to 2:45. Most of us come in at least 1 hour early and leave up to 2 hours past our dismissal time. A lot of us still pack papers and other work to be finished at home. With the constant demands handed down from the state, we still work diligently because we love our job and we love our students. But there are a lot of teachers feeling no matter what they do, it is never good enough for their administration. We have a great number of teachers who are overworked and underappreciated. We are a data-driven society, and I ask anyone in central administration to look at the data of schools that have a high number of voluntary transfers. If you could ask them the reason for wanting to leave their school, you may be surprised by the number that say they feel so disrespected by their administration. Teacher Appreciation Day is May 5th. You need to start thinking now how you can show your appreciation to the hardworking teachers of IPS in May and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Madeline Mason, a teacher at Harshman Magnet Middle School, commenting on IPS teacher compensation. Madeline, please step to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Madeline Mason. I'm a teacher at Harshman. I've been a teacher in IPS for 4 years. This is the only teaching job that I've ever had. I love it, and I love my students dearly. Last year around April, I was mistakenly fired. A list had been sent out in error, releasing teachers based on the old last in, first out practice. Thankfully, this policy doesn't exist in IPS anymore, but this incident would become sort of a turning point for me and my feelings towards my job in this district. In the 2 days that it took to sort the mess out, I began researching jobs in places like Washington, Warren, and Lawrence Township. As you can imagine, I was shocked to find out the difference in salaries. I started doing the math and thinking about my future and even my past of paying thousands of dollars towards the loan for the education that I got to become a teacher. And then I calculated the literal hundreds of thousands of dollars difference it would make in the long run to go and teach somewhere else. I also started getting really frustrated and asking myself, why doesn't our district value us enough? Why isn't keeping great teachers one of our top priorities? We love our jobs, it's why we stay, but we have to think about our lives and our families too. We have to think about what we are bringing into our households and what we are contributing to our future aspirations that as hardworking middle-class people we deserve, such as fulfilling our travel dreams, paying off our student debt in our homes, and being comfortable with our savings accounts. For most of us, these dreams and aspirations are currently placed as a standstill as we wait for our district to decide whether or not keeping us here is a top priority or whether we may unfortunately have to leave to make ends meet and realize our goals. But it's not just about me getting paid more or the hundreds of us IPS teachers who are in financial need of a deserved pay increase after now 6 years. It's about the direct impact that this issue has had on the quality of our schools and will continue to have. It's about the 4 high-quality teachers in my building alone that we lost last year due to financial issues. It's about a first-year teacher who's a single mother being eligible for SNAP benefits and left with no hope of ever improving her financial situation. It's about teachers constantly having to choose between their jobs and the needs of their families. One of the most important jobs in the world, teaching, should not cause these feelings and these fears. I think we can do better. We know that great teachers don't come into the profession for the money, but we also shouldn't have to continue choosing between our jobs and our families, our goals, and our aspirations. Dr. Fairby and members of the board, I think that we can do better as IPS. IPS must continue in its progress in improving our schools and student outcomes. One crucial piece of this effort is making a significant investment in those of us who are on the front lines every single day. IPS must invest in its teachers if we are going to continue to grow and achieve. The impact of a great teacher is immeasurable. We cannot continue to lose them. For every quality teacher that our district loses, it takes 6 times to find an adequate replacement for them. Can our students afford this breach in quality instruction? Can our students afford to continue losing the teachers and adults that they look to for guidance? Can our students afford to learn less and become further behind? No, they cannot. No one can afford for this to continue. And IPS has made so much growth and improvement over the past year. In 1 year, we've raised our report card rating, put new and effective leaders into schools, redesigned and remarketed our brand, as well as created teacher leadership positions district-wide, myself actually being one of the teachers filling this role. We, the teachers, are excited about so much that's going on in IPS, but we believe we need to keep the momentum going strong. A crucial piece of this lies in continuing to hire talent and also retaining our high-quality instructors. This is what Elevate IPS, a teacher-led campaign, is all about. We're about moving away from just complaining in the hallways and the teachers' lounges and actually taking action. We're about coming together, and it's not just about the pay. It's about keeping great people in our schools. It's about elevating the teaching profession, elevating the quality of instruction happening in our classrooms, elevating student learning, elevating IPS. Dr. Fairby and members of the school board, I, on behalf of the teacher-led IPS campaign, Elevate IPS campaign, urge you to make raising the compensation of our high-quality teachers a top priority in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to section 4, the consent agenda. Robert's Rules of Order, which are used by the board to conduct meetings, allow for the use of a consent agenda to efficiently process routine business. All items on the agenda will be approved with a single vote. Any commissioner may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda and that item be addressed individually during the appropriate time later in the meeting. Robert's rules require that the use of a consent agenda be approved as a special rule of order to be used by the governing body. Do I have a motion to adopt a special rule of order for the use of a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The special rule of order for a consent agenda is hereby adopted. We will now vote to approve all items on the consent agenda, which is everything in section 4. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve all of the items in section 4. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Treasurer's report, section 5. Any comments regarding the treasurer's report?
Move approval. Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the treasurer's report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will now move into section 6, superintendent reports.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Madam President. There are a number of items Superintendent will report on this evening. In response to favorable feedback we received on the IPS Empower You initiative, IPS will be expanding the financial empowerment opportunities to staff and families. We will offer several courses around financial wellness, budgeting, savings, and also understanding your credit score. Courses will begin in April and will be available to district employees and also parents. Locations, dates, and times will be forthcoming. I'm also thrilled to report IPS will continue to expand pre-K options for students and families in the district for the 2015-16 school year. We're projected to serve over 1,000 students for the upcoming school year in our preschool programs. We are adding an additional 10 classrooms in the 15-16 school year. The application window for registering for preschool opened this week on March 18th. We had a registration fair that's already been completed on the 18th, and we have an additional fair this Saturday at Arsenal Technical High School from 9 a.m. to noon. Again, this is Saturday, March 21st. In addition to these efforts for registration, IPS continues to meet with state leadership in a united way to ensure that IPS is on path to quality ratings, to ensure that students that are in Marion County and within IPS have access to the scholarships available to 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. In an effort to ensure that students have access to healthy meals over spring break, IPS will provide either lunch or lunch at breakfast at over 20 sites during the week of March 24th and 30th while school is closed. We're excited about this opportunity, and we're asking our principals to promote this with students and families to ensure that families have access and students have access to healthy meals over spring break. Speaking of spring break, as a reminder that Monday, March 23rd is a makeup day, and spring break will officially begin on Tuesday, March 24th. IPS is also excited to report that we have a strong magnet learning community. Each year, Magnet Schools of America sponsors the National Merit Awards, which recognizes magnet schools in the United States. To be eligible for these awards, magnet schools must demonstrate a commitment to innovation, high academic standards, diversity, and overall high-quality educational services. I'm pleased to report that we have 3 schools that receive recognition through the Magnet Schools of America Recognition Program. That is Center for Inquiry 2, which received the Magnet School of Excellence Award. Rezio McClellan School 91 received the Magnet School of Distinction Award, and Theodore Potter School 74 also received a Magnet School of Distinction Award. Again, this is a very prestigious award for our magnet schools that were honored. Over 300 schools nationwide were considered for these awards. Also pleased to report we have students in our athletic programs that continue to excel. We want to recognize the Crispus Attucks boys basketball team who advanced from sectionals to regional Class A tournament. We also have 5 wrestlers from Arsenal Technical High School that advanced past sectionals to regionals. I want to recognize those 5 students. It's Tyler Bolden, Juna Dorsey, Desmond Glaney, Jalen Smith, and Cameron Schuyler. This concludes my reports for the evening.
Thank you. We will now move into commissioner reports. Any commissioner have
Any committee reports?
commissioner comments? Again, this is another change to our format that we decided to move commissioner comments up earlier in the meeting. Commissioner Cosby?
I would just like to share that I had the opportunity to attend a musical at Tech High School. In the recent past, I went to see Shrek, and it was awesome. I had with me a 4-year-old and 11-year-old boys that were entirely approving of the performance. If you have an opportunity to see any of our fine performances at any of our high schools, I would encourage you to do that.
I just want to,
Commissioner Eccles?
I just want to say thank you to the Harshman family for being in the building. If you know, I taught at Harshman back in the day, so it's a special place in my heart. So to see all of them in the audience, I just want to say, Harshman.
Any other comments or reports from board members? We will now move into unfinished business.
In Section 8, we have 2 items. Item 8.01 is a resolution to approve contract with Mass Insight. In your materials, there are several items that I'll reference. Also in your materials is an updated presentation that I will provide this evening, providing an overview of the proposed agreement with Mass Insight. We also have a representative from Mass Insight present as well. Should there be additional questions. In your materials, you have the scope of work for implementation from phase 1 to phase 4. You also have the proposed agreement, and then also the resolution for the contract.
Another change is that we now allow individuals to speak on a specific issue that we are going to take under advisement. As part of our new meeting format, we'll be providing an opportunity for stakeholder comment on specific agenda items as they are considered. Tonight, we will hear a comment from Evelyn Barueto, a parent from Anna Brockhausen School 88, in support of the IPS transformation zone. Her comments will be delivered in Spanish and then translated by her chosen representative.
We're doing
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Evelyn Barrueto, madre de 3 estudiantes de IPS y miembro líder de Stand Indiana. Estoy aquí esta noche para instarles a seguir adelante con la creación de zonas de transformación en IPS. Mis hijos son afortunados de asistir a una escuela de alto rendimiento académico, la Escuela 88. Sin embargo, ese no es el caso de muchos de nuestros niños que asisten a escuelas con calificación D y F. Como miembro de la comunidad, estoy preocupada por ellos y hoy hablo a favor de los niños cuyos padres no saben cómo abogar por mejores escuelas. Lo que estamos haciendo no está funcionando para el casi 50% de los estudiantes de IPS que asisten a escuelas de bajo rendimiento. Evansville ha visto tremendos resultados en la creación de zonas de transformación y considero que nuestro sistema escolar más grande del estado podría aprender y beneficiarse de ese modelo. Aplaudo al Dr. Ferby y a la Junta por considerar nuevos modelos innovadores al que todos podemos unirnos en el principal objetivo de mejorar la educación de todos nuestros niños. Gracias.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Evelyn Barreto. I'm the mother of 3 IPS students and a Stand Indiana parent leader. I'm here tonight to urge you to move forward with the creation of the transformation zones in IPS. My children are lucky. They attend a high-performing elementary school, School 88. However, that's not the case for far too many of our children who are attending D and F-rated schools. As a community member, I am concerned about them. I'm speaking out for those whose parents don't know how to advocate for better schools. What we're doing isn't working for nearly 50% of IPS students who go to low-performing schools. Evansville has seen tremendous results from the creation of transformation zones, and I think the state's largest school system can learn and benefit from that model. I applaud Dr. Farabee and the board for considering innovative school models that share one main goal that we can all rally around, improving education for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will turn it over to the superintendent, who will revisit previously presented information on the IPS transformation zone.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, commissioners, in your materials, you have the proposed agreement. You also have the scope of work. And in your materials, you also have the presentation, which is an additional overview to the proposed partnership with Mass Insight. This evening, happy to provide an overview. And in this overview, we'll touch on background information. As previously shared with commissioners, we're very fortunate to conduct a site visit to Evansville and speak directly with the school district that's implemented this model. Also talk a little bit about how this is a shift from our current means of addressing student achievement and also state intervention in IPS. Speak specifically to IPS turnaround, the transformation zone model in IPS as presented, and also spend some time briefly dispelling some common myths that have been out there as it relates to what this partnership means for the schools and for IPS. So just a reminder that over the last 3 to 4 years, IPS has had several schools that have been under state intervention, which includes takeover and lead partner status. We believe that this approach is a shift from those models to true transformation, which we believe will be long-lasting and sustainable. This is also an opportunity for IPS to be more proactive and take the lead in transformation efforts in our schools as it relates to improving student achievement. So with this particular model, in comparison to previous models, IPS would not only be the lead, but control any partnerships that would be involved with improving student achievement in the schools that are identified that are currently struggling. It's important to note, previously, we've had several partners that have been assigned to us by the State Board of Education, and those contracts have also been managed by the State Board of Education. Again, we believe this is a proactive approach because this would be an IPS contract directly with Mass Insight, and IPS would be taking a more active and proactive role in student achievement. We've had several planning meetings, several presentations to the State Board of Education. This is something that's been well received. And also, again, as mentioned earlier, we conducted a site visit to Evansville to learn about their implementation and what we could possibly replicate here in IPS. What we learned from that visit is there was emphasis on school improvement planning for those schools. There was also a number of opportunities to capitalize on internal expertise. So instead of relying on external expertise, the district had several roles and opportunities to utilize teachers' knowledge, coaches' knowledge to help move student achievement forward. We also note that there was a strategic planning alignment to the work that was being done in the schools as it relates to the transformation zone model. But most importantly, the corporation was leading the work, not an external entity, which we believe is a more effective model. Just a reminder of our current structure as it relates to turnaround in the district. We're currently organized into learning communities where our academic improvement officers supervise our schools and their learning communities, which includes the East, West, and Magnet learning community. We also have identified priority schools that have historically been underperforming and that were on the cusp of state intervention. We proactively implemented intensive supports and strategies to raise student achievement in those schools. And then this would be an additional strategy as it relates to the transformation zone to continue that work in the district. Just a reminder, as a part of our learning community, the purpose here was to ensure that schools and school leaders had one point of contact. What we heard in the past that there was a challenge in terms of where leadership and direction was coming from and support for schools. And so the academic improvement officers have a responsibility to ensure that they're removing barriers for teaching and learning for our schools and the support to our school leaders. We also organize those learning communities based on feeder patterns to ensure that we were employing a pre-K through 12 approach, which was very different than our previous model, which was supervising schools and supporting schools by level. The idea is to support the same schools that are in the same geographic area in the same way, because many of those schools serve the same families and neighborhoods. And as I mentioned earlier, this is highlighted in the geographic alignment based on where schools are located in the various learning communities. So as part of the transformation model that's proposed for IPS, we specifically target the West learning community where we've had a high school, where we've had a number of lead partners, and where we've had a high school that's on the cusp of state intervention. And again, state intervention is implemented when schools are on a continuous decline with performance or with letter grades of E, D, or F. What you see before you is what we propose, which will begin in the West Learning community. We'll begin with, again, 2 high schools and 2 feeder elementary schools into that high school. We're proposing that we begin with George Washington High School and William Penn and Wendell Phillips, which feed into George Washington High School as primary feeders. It's also important to note that these 2 elementary schools are elementary schools that have also struggled with performance, which would also be on the cusp of state intervention. So again, this is a proactive approach not only for the high school, but also those feeder elementary schools. Again, we will remain in the West Learning community with Northwest High School, which is not currently in state intervention, but is on the cusp of intervention. And then 2 elementary schools that have struggled with student achievement, Lewis B. Russell and Lew Wallace. Again, we believe that this K-12 approach and also feeder approach will better position us to not only address student achievement in those high schools, but those schools feeding into those high schools. The next slide speaks to some of the common myths that have been circulating as it relates to what this relationship, what this partnership will mean for those schools and IPS. So we want to provide greater clarity on what this partnership will mean. One myth was that the community engagement will not occur until phase 2. In fact, stakeholder input is essential to phase 1 in the school readiness assessment. The next myth, transformation zone schools have separate governance. Incorrect. In fact, Board of Commissioners maintain the same and existing authority over those schools. And again, this is also a more proactive approach to ensuring that we're taking the lead and not the State Board of Ed taking the lead. Transformation zone teachers will have to reapply for their jobs. I want to be very clear on this item. Staffing will work to support existing teachers and hiring for vacancies in those schools. So these schools are not being reconstituted. Teachers in those schools do not have to reapply for those jobs. The contract will cost IPS money. In fact, we presented this proposal to the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education has committed funding for each phase of the partnership, and we've also received funding for the first phase, which is scheduled to begin after board approval. So as you can see, not only is this a more cost-efficient approach, but it's a proactive approach, and we believe that it's one better suited to sustaining achievement in the district and also building internal expertise and capacity. Also in the presentation, there's an addendum that includes information on each phase of implementation. I'm happy to entertain any questions as it relates to the presentation of the proposed agreement.
Commissioner Bentley?
I had a question, and I don't know if you want to go into this detail, or you had mentioned that there's somebody here from Mass Insight, but I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the plans to engage parents and community in this process, not necessarily in just phase 1, but maybe what they're what their vision is on that, and then also with staff engagement as well. If we can hear a little bit about that.
If Ami could come forward, she can speak to some of the previous work and Mass Insight, specifically in Evansville, and then I can also follow up with additional comments.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and the IPS community. I think the first part of your question was around what does that community input process look like and what's the vision for it. So actually that's a very important element of the success of the model. And it's actually one of our key we call them our design features of what we think an ideal transformation zone or partnership zone in our speak looks like. So during the phase 1 process, the way it's worked in other places is during the school readiness assessment when we're actually in the school community. And that means focus groups with teachers. And not just one focus group so that they get cherry picked. All the teachers get input into that process. And then also, as far as focus groups with community partners. So sometimes those are partners that get mentioned during the school readiness assessment process that teachers say, I love when the experience core is here, so we learn that the experience core is there, so we want to talk to a representative. So we typically assemble a community partner group. And if that's not available, hopping on the phone with a few of those people before kind of finishing the report. And then finally, we do engage with parents during the process if that's the direction that the school corporation would like to go in. So we have done parent groups in the past that give very explicit input as to what is working well and what isn't working well. So those are all kind of stakeholders that we have invited into the process part of phase 1 as part of the school readiness assessment. As far as phase 2 goes, our vision for the community input piece is really benched in the advisory council. And that advisory council is exactly what you speak about. It's about making sure that the members of the community, like the parent that we heard from today, really have a vested interest in advocating what's best for those schools in that community. And it's, as I said, a cornerstone of what we look for in developing within that zone and that community. So those are two kind of explicit things that I hope help paint that picture of how the work works.
Thank you.
I would just quickly add that one of the features that was very attractive about this model, not only are we pushing the State Board of Ed out of the way, no offense to them, but we need to own this work. And a part of owning this work is ensuring that that work happens in IPS, specifically within our communities, within our neighborhoods. And so we don't believe that we can truly transform a school or transform a neighborhood without transforming the other entities. So when you transform schools, you transform a neighborhood. And when you transform a neighborhood, you transform a school. That's been very difficult for us to do with so many external entities driving what happens in our school. So this is an opportunity to not only take control of that, but to give ownership to the people here in our neighborhoods and have those neighborhoods not only improve in terms of what's available as school options, but just the wealth and the overall health of the neighborhoods. And so I'm excited that we have an opportunity to own the work and take the lead and have an opportunity to lock arms with community members, business leaders, clergy, anyone who wants to be involved in helping transform not only the school, but the neighborhood.
And just to follow up, I'm assuming that you go in and look at what's already in place. I know at Washington High School they have a very strong community advisory council. I mean, it's not unusual to have 25 or 30, the variety. I'm assuming that won't be disassembled and we won't start from the ground. We'll work with that group that already kind of has a lot of the answers for what needs to occur.
Yes, the way that we are a supporting partner to you all and to the IPS community in making that transformation happen. So if there are best practices that exist in the school, like the one that you just mentioned, Commissioner Arnold, that is absolutely that we don't want to disassemble that to create something new. I mean, that's never the answer, right? The answer is what's best for that community. And so it's great to hear George Washington has that type of structure in place, and it's replicating what's great about it and maybe saying, hey, have you considered this? And adding to it and really making it kind of taking a culmination of best practices. But without knowing more details about it, I can't speak directly to it. But yes, it builds upon, I mean, that's the basic, school improvement work is organic. I mean, there's so many stakeholders that add to that piece. We don't pretend to have like some secret sauce, right? Like all of the talent and the expertise is within this community, and it's maximizing and really building the capacity and finding it here to do the work. I often say that we haven't done our jobs if we can't walk away by the end of a partnership, because that means we haven't helped get you everything that you need. So I hope that it's really to build.
And I think, some of our schools are a little gun shy that they've had so many different programs and so many different people in and scrutinizing and they just seem to keep going in a circle. So, I'm glad to hear that people will come in and respect and look at what's going on and value, because there are people who have been very dedicated to the school and the community, and some things work well. And so that makes me feel good to know that you're going to value, and that will be part of your process.
Absolutely.
Other comments or questions? Oh, Commissioner Odle.
Well, I'm glad to see this, and I'm really supportive of it. The only thing, which you can expect, I always come up with, is that, if we know the best practices, why can't we go faster? It's sort of like we don't get to. It looks like we don't get to where we say, okay, it's improved for 2 years, and I just wonder how many kids, don't get a good education while we're waiting to improve. And how do you take what you know and make this happen faster?
That is an excellent question, and one that, having been I'm a former teacher myself and a district leader, and that is something that, while to get all the pieces right, it will take time, and that work is already happening, I can bet, in all of these schools, right? That extraordinary work to improving that schools, it already exists. That's already in motion. It's adding to that what's going on that's actually going to tip it over. And to speak, we project that this work is going to take 3 years because it takes typically school districts and corporations that amount of time, but that's not to say that you can't finish everything in that scope in less time. Evansville proceeded at us like they were where we thought they were going to be in year 3 at the 1.5 year mark. And it took a lot of really bold decisions. It took a lot of investment to say, this is going to be our top priority, and we're going to lend it the capacity. But Commissioner Odle, that's like a direct, it might not take 3 years. And if it doesn't, I will be the first person, and so will all, like the whole Mass Insight team will be like so excited that the capacity is here and that you'll be able to take this and run with it everywhere else, building upon all the incredible work that you have already done.
Commissioner Cosby?
Yeah, I'm going to cut straight to the heart of the matter here. Through a lot of niceties and through a lot of fluff, because I think that's what we've been hearing, and you'll pardon me for saying that. But myths don't just appear out of nowhere. Myths, these myths that Dr. Farabee referenced in his presentation are not unfounded. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at some myths right here in front of me on my computer screen, and they're present in a document that's titled The Scope of Work. The scope of work clearly states that in partnership zone schools, all staff members reapply for their positions. The scope of work also states, which I guess you want to label this a myth as well, that there's references to changing the governance structure. And that may be a connotation that I'm hearing, but to me governance structure refers to board structure. All I can do is urge my fellow board members to not allow myths to appear in documents that we're voting on. The presentation can say what it wants. We don't vote on presentations, we vote on documents. And the agreement that we will be voting on tonight references the scope of work as a binding document. So if we're gonna move forward on this, I just want it to be clear that we'll be voting to allow myths to continue in our documents that are legally binding in terms of this contract.
Could you reference where that is on the scope of work?
The scope of work, Appendix 1, MIE design features, it's toward the very last. It's on the very last page. There's several check marks there. It is the last page, page 9 of 9. Staffing. In partnership zone schools, all staff members reapply for their positions. I don't understand how it cannot be any more clear than that. It's not a myth. If I'm voting on it and it's a document that's binding and a part of this contract, then it's not a myth.
Just to clarify, that appendix item that you're referring to, Commissioner Cosby, those are when I spoke earlier about the advisory council and that being one of the cornerstones of what we see in our partnership zone work, those design features that you're referring to are exactly what I was referring to. And those statements are where we started, where we start. But what we have learned through all of our work, and I can actually, Evansville is one particular case, but we've done this in a few places and it looks totally different. So I apologize for that. That's not part of the scope of work. That's merely kind of it's not necessarily our vision document, but it's typically when SIG met, school turnaround, where teachers had to reapply for their jobs, that's where that statement came from. So it's not how we intend to proceed with this particular piece here. It's what, again, the work around staffing is about what suits the district, suits the staff needs, and aligns it to what the school needs are.
So then my expectation would be that if it is a collaboration between your company and the district, then the scope of work would reflect that collaboration and not include items that don't pertain to the work that's going to be done in our district.
Okay. So could we remove appendix? I mean, is there an issue with removing that from the agreement? Commissioner Eccles, and then I'll get to you, Commissioner Hannon.
My question was just more so the flexibility of this document, and I'm looking for lines at the bottom that says this is a contract rather than a scope of work. And so I just was wondering the flexibility.
So to be clear, the contract is separate from the scope of work. The scope of work outlines the deliverables and the assurances from Mass Insight. So I don't want those two items to be confused.
But
There's discomfort on the appendix, which is the design model from Mass Insight. We're happy to remove that, but the contract
references the scope of work as being attached and incorporated by reference into this agreement.
Right, and that's referenced as relates to the deliverables for the scope of work for each phase 1, 2, 3, and 4.
And I'm just not comfortable with, voting to approve an agreement which references a scope of work that you're presenting as myths. And, if they're myths, let's take them out.
Okay, finish up, and then I'll go to Commissioner Hannon.
I just want to be clear as well, just looking in there, I believe that it says that the consultant and the client may mutually agree to modify the services. And so with that, this is not a binding and it can't be modified.
Commissioner Hannon?
I think my comment is just that the appendix is design features of a partnership or transformation zone, meaning these are the best practices that Mass Insight has identified as where they've been successful. These are the things that are true. It's not a requirement that we have staff reapply, and I trust that now on the record, what I'm voting on, we will not be violating what Dr. Farabee has said and what our contract lays out. We're not going to have staff reapply for their positions, and I'm saying that on the record. I think we're all saying that on the record. I thought we were. My understanding from this document, and it's unfortunate that folks in the audience can't see it, but it is available on board docs, is there's a scope of work that has an addendum on the back saying these are the design features of the Mass Insight design features. These are core indicators that Mass Insight believes are implemented, influenced, and measured that result in improved academic outcomes in turnaround schools in our field engagements, meaning all the places that they've worked, these are the things that they've seen be successful. And it's a list of things from professional development, facilities, technology, autonomy for schools, a bunch of the things we talk about is all one thing. Having clear goals laid out, funding capacity, advisory councils, partnerships, planning. So it's just a list of things that they've seen work in other places, and I don't believe that it in any way impacts how we move forward, and that's why I will be supporting the proposal. Comments?
I just feel that it's prudent for us to, have our binding documents aligned with what we are saying. I don't think that it would be a significant impediment to the contract for us to do that.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes, well, I don't know if it's a impediment to the contract. I think there's been a lot of conversations, and to kind of switch things up right here on the fly doesn't seem like the best thing. We've heard that what this role is of this document, which is not to be prescriptive, restrictive. It's the foundational piece they're working off of. But I would hate to go in the other direction and create new restrictions on them that they had not anticipated in our partnership. So they're doing an assessment, and I would assume that assessment would also play into the determination of how staffing is done. I don't know that, but it may be depending on what that reveals, you would need to take a different action. So I would not be supportive of putting that in here as some kind of guarantee.
Comments, Commissioner Bentley?
Oh, I just wanted to add, I'm not concerned about it. I think the superintendent has indicated that, that's not going to happen. We've got a contract with our teachers that won't allow it to happen, so I don't know why we're talking about it. I think that, this is a scope of work that doesn't have anything to do with the contract, and, we're not signing that all of these things in this appendix are what's going to happen in IPS, because I think that has yet to be determined, correct? I mean, Mass Insight's going to be working with the central administration as well as the schools to determine what the best next steps will be for those individual schools, correct? I mean, each of these, whatever the intervention is in each of these schools might look a little bit different depending on what the needs are in those schools, correct?
Correct. And it's just important to note that the contract references the scope of work and the deliverables for each phase. If you look at the language of the deliverables, which I think is an exciting feature we should all be thrilled about, is they're recommend, support. So we're no longer switching out lead partners every year, confusing principals and teachers. But we're not in a situation where we're standing before the State Board of Ed and one entity is saying, well, things aren't getting better because this didn't happen, and there's no ownership. It's just really very confusing in terms of who's accountable for doing the work. I've just been very frustrated with the number of times that I've been in that situation where somebody from Florida is saying, well, this didn't happen because IPS didn't do this. So Mass Insight is here to support, recommend as a partner. This is not like any of the other relationships that we've had, which I think is a positive that we need to be really excited about as we think about how we go forward. But what happens in terms of staffing will result from a recommendation to the superintendent and ultimately approved by the board. It's not our intent to have staff reapply. It's our intent to move forward with the deliverables and the scope of work that have been outlined in alignment with the contract.
I want to thank you, Dr. Farabee, for putting together some more detail on the proposal. I know some of us are kind of new to the new to this particular proposal. I know it's been discussed before, and I'm excited about it too. I think that the state board has recognized that the turnaround model that they had used before does not work. It's not bottom up, it's top down, and the worst kind of top-down. And I think that I'm really excited about this and the possibilities and what it can mean to these schools. I mean, I think, we've got to remember that we've got some schools that have been failing not just 1 year or 2 years, but they're on, year 4 and 5. And, I was on the board for 12 years before, and we were having the same conversations 12 years after I started on the board. That was a one whole generation of kids that had gone through school, and we still were having the same conversations. I just think this is really exciting because it does build that capacity from the ground up, and it's going to be a transformation that we can call our own. It's not somebody coming in and saying, this is what you're going to do. And I think that's what's really exciting about it. So I appreciate the additional information. I'm going to vote for this with bells on. I think it's an exciting day for our district, and it's going to be exciting for our kids in those schools and moving forward. So thank you.
Commissioner Odom?
Yeah, I'm supportive of it, and hear what the superintendent's saying, that, we're gonna be the approval process for whatever Mass Insights implements. We're not giving them the approval to do things without the approval of our administration. But I also think that, that there may be times when we are transforming a school where it will be in the best interest to have everybody reapply for their job. And so I don't want the public to think that we're never going to use that option. But we're not going to let somebody else tell us we have to use that option. We're going to use that option when our administration thinks that's the best thing to do.
And the bottom line is, we have to do something. I mean, we're obligated. And this is our opportunity to lead this process, as opposed to having the state continue to intervene and assign lead partners to us. And I just have one more question. I like the idea of the elementary schools being tied, because I do know that that's a big issue of working with elementary schools that feed into the high schools. And I know we've talked about this in the past, that we have children from all over coming into some of our high schools. That creates, it's easy to take and work with an elementary school, and those children then feed into the high school and they continue that progress. But when you have students coming from all over the district and ending up going, it's those students that I think sometimes don't get it. Are there plans, I know it's not part of this, but are there plans to go back and look at that and look at school boundaries and look at how do we get back to community schools other than our magnets?
This specific plan on the transformation zone does not address districting or boundaries. But happy to have that conversation, but this doesn't address that.
All right, just wanted to plant that seed. I will now call for the question. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved.
Second? Been moved and seconded that we approve this recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries. Moving on to the next resolution.
Next item is item 8.02, is the recommendation to approve a lease agreement with Alternatives in Education. We previously provided information on the program to be housed at Susan Roll Leach School 68 beginning the 15-16 school year. We've modified the lease begin and end date based on feedback we received from the agenda review. This is an opportunity to support students that are under juvenile detention supervision for IPS and also across Marion County. It's also an opportunity to maximize facility utilization at School 68. We recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the lease for Susan Roll Leach School 68 to Alternatives in Education as presented.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve this recommendation. Comments or questions? Commissioner Bentley?
Again, I want to thank Dr. Farabee for giving me even more information, because I kept asking questions, and because I was concerned about the existing program at School 68, which is quite small, but it's going to be moved to the program, or to the building on Meridian Street, correct? Okay, so that'll continue. Again, I'm excited about this proposal as well. I think we've got quite a few buildings that we're sitting on that are not utilized or underutilized. I read a lot about the proposal the alternatives in education proposal, and it sounds like a really strong program that'll benefit not just our kids, but kids in the county that are in juvenile detention, or it's also for kids that are coming out of juvenile detention to make sure they don't go back in. Is that correct as well?
There's some transition support, and also they've also expressed interest in expulsion as well. Those students been expelled. Outside of the district, there's still a number of students that attend other schools that are expelled and don't have options. So the goal is to ensure that as many students that have had some challenges in the past, whether it be behavior or with the justice system, that they have an opportunity to ensure that their educational program continues and have access to high quality curriculum.
Now, we currently provide the education services within the juvenile detention center.
We currently provide staff that provide those services. All of those services would then transition to this site.
Okay. So I assume they're going to be then providing transportation back and forth for their students to go to that site? Because that site's not adjacent to the juvenile detention facility, is it?
Right, yes. We haven't made any obligations for transportation.
Okay, but they'll do, I mean,
they'll handle
I
the
would assume they would be, okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I think we both did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to generally say that I'm supportive of this as well. Being a product of an alternative ed program, I'm always supportive of providing additional opportunities for kids in the community. This is a much needed venture, I believe.
Commissioner Eccles? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now we move into new business, and I would ask for a motion to approve 9.01 through 9.05, which are all related to acceptance of the budget. And we've had opportunities to meet. We've had a public meeting. Yes, Commissioner Eccles?
If we do that, I can't make a comment on a certain item, correct?
No, I think you can, once we...
Yeah.
I think you can. I think if we approve them, we're going to call for comments anyway. So is there a...
Move approval.
All right.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we accept 901 and 905 for acceptance of the recommendation. Comments or questions? Commissioner Eccles?
I just want to acknowledge all right, I would just like to acknowledge a student actually reached out to me about his want to have a longer summer and shorter spring break, and I just wanted to shout him out. Granted, we're not going to allow that, we're not going to vote on that, but I want to acknowledge Mr. Creighton for giving me a nice little message. Theodore Potter, shout out to him for using his advocacy voice to reach out.
Any other comments on these items? Commissioner Cosby?
Just in terms of the budget, I'd like to echo some of the comments that we heard earlier this evening about, the need for an increase in our teachers' salaries. And I'm hopeful that as we further solidify the budget and when legislation is done, that we're able to make that happen.
And thank you, Commissioner Cosby, for raising that up. I was going to actually address that in superintendent comments, but I look forward to some meeting time with Elevate IPS. I believe I got that correct. It is our hope that we have as much advocacy around proper funding for IPS and other school corporations to ensure that we can remain competitive with compensation. I think the more people we have in that conversation, the merrier. So I look forward to extending an invitation so we can meet and talk about how we get there, because it remains a commitment of the Board of Commissioners. I know it remains a commitment of the administration.
Commissioner Bentley?
Ditto.
I say we've had a lot of conversations about teacher compensation and what do we need to do to move that item
Right.
forward. So I do think that Commissioner Cosby's comment is one that's
I just wanted to also,
supported by the board.
right. And I think that, it's frustrating that we're trying to make these bold changes in the district and really sort of think big, and it's unfortunate that the state legislature just is not at this point being particularly helpful on the funding side, because we can't do the things that we want to do in this district and that what Dr. Farabee wants to do and what needs to be done unless we have the funding to get it done. And so I hope that there can be changes made to the funding formula. Right now it's just not looking good for us, and that's unfortunate, because I think that our train has left the station, and I think we've got some good and exciting things going on, but we have to be able to pay our teachers more money. We have to be able to do that. And I mean, it has to be a priority. So I hope our legislature is listening.
Okay. We will now take a vote on 901 through 905. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to 9.06.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we accept the recommendation for 9.06. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9.07.
So moved.
Second.
And if you will remember, this was up in the consent agenda, and Commissioner Odle requested that it be moved out for more information, just as a follow-up. Any comments or questions on 9.07? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I will now turn it over to Dr. Farabee for superintendent comments.
This is a follow-up of our day today. Had an opportunity to host our principals for a principals meeting, and we had appreciation day for our principals, and just wanted to thank them for their leadership as we go into our last week before spring break. And very grateful to the IPS Foundation as a part of this celebration of our leadership. Provided breakfast to all of our principals this morning. So again, thank you to the foundation. Also, would just like to express gratitude and thanks to the University of Indianapolis and also to Fifth Third Bank. Had an opportunity to stop by the Young Bankers Club graduation this afternoon. It's a phenomenal event that the Fifth Third Bank and University of Indianapolis collaborate on to ensure that the many things that we're trying to help bring our employees and families along in terms of financial wellness and literacy, they're doing at a very early age, and you'd just be elated to see how excited our young people were to be participants. So again, very grateful and want to publicly say thank you to that group as well. This concludes my comments for the evening.
Commissioner comments? Commissioner Bentley?
I was invited to attend the History Day at Tech High School earlier this week, and it was wonderful to see all the projects that the students had done. And I just wanted to thank the Historical Society who helped sponsor and coordinate that effort. And I think we have 4 schools this year that are participating in History Days, and the placed winners from each of those schools will go on to this, I don't know if it's regional or state competition, but it's a great opportunity for our students, and I know they are really interested in expanding that effort to all schools in IPS and having an actual, district-wide History Day competition. It was really great, and it was enjoyable to see the kids' projects. Also on Sunday, I attended the Broad Ripple High School Alumni Association had an event, a fundraiser to raise funds for scholarships for students. So I wanted to thank the individuals that helped put that event together. I think they had a good crowd there, and so hopefully they raised quite a bit of money for student scholarships for Broad Ripple. So I wanted to give them a shout out as well.
Commissioner Odle?
Yeah, I attended the Imagine project report at Orchard School, where 8th grade students take on a challenge, in our community. And they were looking at, how do we make kids healthier in our community? And so all the 8th grade classes reported out on their projects. There were 2 IPS schools that participated in it. So I wanted to applaud those principals and teachers who got involved in that, because they're participating along with charter schools and private schools and things like that. And I thought it was a great experience for our schools. I know CFI 2 was one of the schools. I can't remember the other one, but the principal, I'm sure, knows who they were, so congratulations. And then the other thing, just a comment on the issue of teacher pay. I think there's no issue that I've seen more uniformity in this board on than that issue, that we want to pay our teachers more. But for our community inside IPS and for our broad community, as Kelly pointed out, the legislature is going to give us less money. They're not going to give us more. I mean, so the option isn't for us to print our own. We don't have that option. So what we've got to do is figure out, what is it that we're not going to do? What expenses are we going to cut out so we can put more of our money into a fair compensation for our teachers? So that means change. And so we're going to have to make some tough decisions. And so I encourage you to participate in the strategic planning, in our operational efficiency committee that we're looking at. But we will have to make choices about things we won't be able to do if we're going to put those dollars into more competitive pay for our teachers. So I just ask you to think about that and be ready to support that. If you support teachers, support us, cutting out expenses that we can.
Comments? Hearing none, our next meeting will be this Sunday in the foyer out in the Ed Center from 1 to 4. It's an open meeting, and the board will be talking about autonomy and working on our vision and our mission. And so again, that's an open meeting if anyone would like to give up their Sunday, as we are, to come and meet with us. Hearing no other business, we stand adjourned.
We are going to have prayer before that meeting.
What?